Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz News. I am Peter, that is Connor, and this is your Wednesday edition of the news. We got some movie and TV stuff, a lot of little things, but a couple of interesting, juicier items, which I think we'll start off with on the movie side, because unsurprisingly, and it's unsurprising now, I'd be surprised to hear this, a couple months ago, because I was convinced that Godzilla vs. Kong was definitely the last of the MonsterVerse films, because the last one didn't do that hot, but shockingly, the new one, Godzilla vs. Kong, has been doing very well, both on HBO Max and in the box office, despite the fact of where we are in the world. Maybe showing that there's an appetite for big movies on the big screen, and maybe better from that. But the news is that Adam Wingard is in talks to direct another MonsterVerse film for Legendary, following the success of Godzilla vs. Kong. If the deal goes through, he'll be the first director to return for one out of this whole shared universe. Everyone else only did one and left. And he is working on a sequel, of all things, to Face Off.
An actual sequel, not like a remake or anything.
Well, that's the thing. People thought it was a remake or whatever at first, because it just, the news was just he's doing a Face Off reboot. And then he clarified later, this isn't a remake of the first film, this is set in universe, this is, Will I have any characters from the first film? I am going to assume not, but...
Sure.
So I'd say soft reboot would be my exact phrase, but in-universe sequel, technically. But, yeah, so he wants to continue, apparently. He had plans for where he might go next. And there's no indication of exactly, what the monsters will be. You presume both Godzilla and Kong would be back in some capacity. Kong especially, because Kong felt more central to the film, but I feel like given that Legendary have a big deal with Toho to have the license to Godzilla, that they're going to have Godzilla in there in some capacity. And if they don't, I will riot. So that's important, but that's the news.
Oh, you'll riot at the fact that there might be another Kong movie. I'm sure you will.
I'll riot that there'll be a lack of representation for Godzilla, who's better.
Godzilla already has more films in just this universe.
I don't care. I want
Kong
more
needs one
Godzilla.
to even it out.
I want more Godzilla. Okay?
You can have Godzilla after Kong catches up.
No. So, it may take a little while, though, because he is doing another film first, at the very least. He's got that over at Paramount. So... So we'll shall see. But I'm not surprised that they're actually planning something now, given how much better this one seemed to do. It does make my monster fan brain go in terms of, okay, who could the villains be then? Like, who could Godzilla and Kong team up for another movie to fight against?
They could make new villains.
They could make new villains, but there is a library of Toho monsters to choose from here.
There is.
I mean, we just had Mecha Godzilla, so it feels maybe a bit repetitive to say Mecha King Ghidorah, even though I would lose my shit for Mecha King Ghidorah. Destroyer could be fun. Some people enjoy Gigan. Biollante might be a wackier, weirder choice. But, yeah, maybe it'll be something new. Or maybe they'll even rope in another thing. Like, maybe they'll do a crossover. I mean, Legendary, I think... or have ties to Pacific Rim, so
that sounds familiar. Yeah,
they're definitely both Warner Brothers. I mean, maybe they're not both Legendary. Maybe it's something similar. But do they make a deal with something else that either has a giant monster or a giant robot that they can have in the movie? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the options.
Generic mechs always work, even if they're not Pacific Rim mechs.
Sure. Yeah, what if we have like human villains with big mechs, and then Godzilla and Kong are like, F this shit.
Yeah.
We're taking them on. But hey, there's potential. And if it progresses the relationship that kind of is established between the two characters by the end of the movie, that could be kind of interesting to sort of start off with there's an uneasy alliance already kind of in place. And where you go from there. So, interesting. So that's cool. Next up, Cole Sprouse, star of Connor's favourite TV show, Riverdale. he is going to star alongside Lana Condor in New Line's HBO Max film, Moonshot. Chris Winterbauer is attached to direct from a screenplay by Max Tax. Did his parents want him to have a dumb name? Is that?
I think so.
It's Tax with an E at the end, so maybe it's pronounced differently. But
what, a taxi?
Taxi, Max Taxi.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
Could be Taxi, like Max Taxi.
Well, we'd need the accent above it for that.
I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. All right. It's a romantic comedy with a sci-fi twist set in a future where Mars is terraformed and colonized by the best humanity has to offer. Two very different college students wind up joining forces and sneak on board a space shuttle to the Red Planet in order to be united with their significant others. Am I going to go on a limb here and say the two students are going to fall in love with each other along the way? Does that seem like
I will be shocked if they don't, but I mean, could be fun anyway, I guess.
Yeah, so Jughead's going to Mars. That's the headline for that.
Pretty sure that's been done already.
And comic books, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if it happens in season 5...
It might well have happened in the show for all we know.
If it happens in season 5 of Riverdale, do keep me updated.
I will. All I'm saying is I can't rule it out.
So, next up, Universal in working title are doing a reboot. They're going to remake The Borrowers. Do you remember The Borrowers? Do you have any idea what that is?
The name sounds vaguely familiar, but I couldn't...
I would never have remembered this, but as soon as I read the name, I did see them. There was a movie in the 90s, I think, that I saw as a kid. It's like tiny people, it's like a group of people who are action figure sized that are sneaking around.
Sure.
I mean, I'll read the description here to give a more accurate thing, but The Borrowers is an action adventure that follows a family of tiny people who live secretly in the walls and floors of an English house and borrow from the big people in order to survive. That's basically it. Yeah, so there was a 1998 live action feature. Sorry. 97 was the film, 1998. John Goodman was in it, which actually sounds familiar. And
I feel like there's a Studio Ghibli film that is exactly this as well, with the same like The Borrowers kind of being what they're called as well. It's not, obviously the film's not called that.
It's based on the Mary Norton book. I'm going to assume the book's much older than the 90s though.
Yeah.
It sounds
I
like
wonder
an
if the Studio Ghibli book is the film is based on the same thing.
It might be.
It does seem to be, because when I just googled it, Arrietty, or The Secret World of Arrietty, depending on where you are, does seem to be based on that.
So Jim Broadbent was in the 90s movie as well.
Jim Broadbent.
As do I. He's Slater from Only Fools and Horses, and later also a fun character in Hot Fuzz. He was also Santa in Arthur Christmas. There's three different...
They are three very different things.
Yes.
Yeah. It's also, I believe, Horace Slughorn in Harry Potter.
No one cares about that. So, I don't know if I care all that much. It's not exactly a property I have attachment to, but I can definitely see why, with modern effects and whatnot, they might be tempted to do this kind of idea. It's I don't know. It sounds like a possible fun kids movie.
Yeah, it does sound potentially fun. I'd be down for it.
Yeah. I have no memories of the 90s movie though. I always said I've just knowing I've seen it.
Vaguely awareing that it exists.
But I definitely saw it. I definitely at least watched it once. Next up, Caitlin Dever, who's already set to appear in Dear Heaven Hansen, has found another role coming up. So she's getting a lot of work because she was in the news last week.
Last time I was here?
Were you on that episode?
I was, yeah.
So, yes. Billy Lord's also on board.
I'm in.
They're set to star in Ticket to Paradise, which is also starring George Clooney and Julia Roberts.
Okay.
Yeah. Or is this a remake of a film starring them? What? I'm confused. Kelly Davis. Yeah, no, they're just in this. So, actually, Joe, it's throwing me off here. I'm so used to these things being remakes and reboots that the sentence of the original comedy made me think it was about to tell me about the original version. But all it's actually saying is that this film is original.
Yes.
So this was almost my cynicism making me confused.
It wasn't almost. It was your cynicism making you confused. That was a perfectly fine sentence that Deadline wrote.
Yes, Deadline, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, the original comic revolves around two exes who find themselves on a shared mission to stop their love-struck daughter from making the same mistake they once made. So you're going to have George Clooney and Julia Roberts like try to stop their daughter from getting married or something.
Yeah. Presumably.
Sounds like a light-hearted. Do you know, it sounds a little bit like that movie Blockers, but maybe with just bigger stars as the parents.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it could be fun. It's a good cast as well.
It's a good cast. Yeah, I mean, the premise seems fine, but and as a comedy, comedies are hard to judge until you actually get a sense of the humor, but I can't argue the cast, certainly. So.
No, and all of them have got pretty good comic roles in the past. Good, we kind of have an expectation that they can probably pull it off.
Next up, Stephen James from F. Beale Street Could Talk, if I could say that properly. If I can talk. And J.K. Simmons are going to appear in a college sports drama called National Champions.
Oh man, way to tank my interest.
James will play a star quarterback who ignites a player's strike hours before the biggest game of the year in order to fight for fair compensation, equality, and respect for the student athletes who put their bodies and health on the line for their schools. So much drama over sports at colleges. This is baffling to me, but sure.
I mean, the only thing I will give it the benefit of the doubt here on is the amount of TV shows, movies, just drama in general around these things, is that it does seem to be like pretty heavily rooted in reality, that I don't understand the genuine care for college sports.
No, that was my point. I don't know what you're trying to explain. Me making fun of things there was making fun of the real world, not the concept of this movie or any other movie that's based around these things. It's how much money and the fact that they actually broadcast college sports in the US is so bizarre and alien to me.
No, it is bizarre. In this country, you get the top tier of a handful of sports maybe broadcast, and then anything that's even just below the top tier but still professional level, you're lucky to get maybe some coverage of.
Yeah, bizarre to me. So hey, there you go. You're getting a sports drama. Enjoy it. Next up, Guillermo del Toro.
Was this the thing he was teasing last night?
It must be, yeah. Troll Hunters Rise of the Titans, which is an animated thing here for Netflix, has got a release date. It is coming on the 21st of July. There's also a teaser trailer. It's a Netflix DreamWorks animation that Del Toro's involved in here. The movie set...
I don't know if... Is this really the big thing that he was teasing?
I don't know. I'd see him teasing anything.
No, fair enough. I'm surprised because he's had like 3 or 4 series of Troll Hunters stuff over the past 6 or 7 years.
Maybe he's big announcements tomorrow. Maybe this is unrelated to the teasing.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I don't always tease anything. The movie set in the world created by Del Toro and his epic Tales of Arcadia trilogy. Arcadia may look like an ordinary town, but it lies the center of a magical and mystical lines that makes it the nexus for many. Oh man, I'm so bored just reading this.
Oh, it's so good.
For many battles among the otherworldly creatures, including trolls, aliens, and wizards.
I've watched the first show, and it is utterly wonderful.
If I read the word Troll Hunter, I want the found footage movie about the crazy guy hunting trolls.
I get it. That's why
I went from Troll Hunter.
This is phenomenal urban fantasy. At least the first show is. I can't speak for the others. But oh man, yeah. I need to get back and watch the rest of them, and then I will enjoy this movie.
I will not. Next up, a Mexican mythology-infused video game, Aztec Forgotten Gods, is getting a movie adaptation.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, Impossible Dream Entertainment and Lienzo Gaming Studio have partnered on Aztec, a live-action Latinx-themed feature film that's based on the upcoming game, so it's not even out yet, this game.
That's why I've not heard of it. That's
fine. The premise is a revisionist history telling of the Aztec history, sprinkled with an extraterrestrial antagonist. And what sounds like Mexico and Central America's answer to Wakanda, European powers never arrived on the shores of ancient Mesoamerica. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
I think.
Mesoamerica, yeah. The story takes place in a future where Aztec Empire was never conquered and flourished into a hyper-advanced, cutting-edge civilization. The Aztec Empire's capital, Tenochtitlan, yes, okay, has thrived for centuries as a stone metropolis, technologically elevated yet heavily rooted in the ways of those indigenous to the land. That is until supernatural beings suddenly start to converge on the ancient city, duping those who live there by masking themselves as ancient Aztec gods like the feathered serpent deity Quetzalcoatl or Mictlantecuhtli. I'm sorry, guys, this is absolutely... They're hammering me here with this. The Lords of the Underworld. Their goal is to enslave the inhabitants, seeing through their ruse as an unlikely 20-something heroine named Actley, whose arms have been replaced with powerful gauntlet-like ancient stone weapons. She leads the opposition and uncovers the mystery behind these beings. That was a lot to take in.
It was a lot, yeah.
Very high concept, and
I think the first episode of this will be a real test.
It's a movie.
Oh, it's a movie. Okay. The first half an hour of this is going to be a real test of how much I care, because that's a lot of exposition.
I think I'm just surprised it's live action. I went back up to check there after I read it because it was so...
It definitely said live action, yeah.
Yeah, because it was so like thick with, it's this world, it's this city that doesn't really exist, these gods, all this technology. I was like, oh man, that's going to be super expensive if it's not animated. So.
Yeah.
Or look really embarrassing. I wanted to.
Interested. I might, look into the game a bit more. Maybe see if that takes my fancy.
Next up, Ron Perlman, Harvey Keitel, Elias Koteas, Joel David Moore, and newcomer Emma Ho are going to star in The Baker. Code 8. Did I see something called Code 8? Or am I thinking of something? I think I'm thinking of something else.
No, Code 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Stephen Amell sci-fi thing, right?
Is that Code 8? If that's Code 8...
I think it's Code 8.
If that's Code 8, then this little girl was in Code 8. But... she's definitely in Code 8. I'm just not convinced that was Code 8. But
it was, yeah.
Okay. The movie's going to chart the story of a stoic man, played by Perlman, living a monk-like existence in self-imposed exile. When his estranged son is killed in a drug deal gone bad, he is left to look after his granddaughter he never knew existed. He is forced back into the life he tried to put behind him. Keitel plays his decades-long nemesis, Koteas, a henchman stuck between the two. Okay. So, old man Ron Perlman's living like a monk, but he has to come out and be a badass again to protect his granddaughter.
So what you're saying is, I'm going to do this, he's Shepherd Book. In a lot of ways.
That's where your mind went to with this?
In a lot of ways, yeah. I think it was the monk bringing in the religious aspect.
Okay, I mean,
to it. Self-imposed exile. I don't know. There's a lot of similarities there.
I mean, it's a pretty standard action trope to have the old retired badass sort of have to come back out and protect their family member.
It was specifically using the religious aspect with using monk That made me think of it.
The bigger thing here is just the cast you've got. Keitel, Perlman, and maybe not as big a name, Elias Koteas. I've seen in many a thing, and he's always been very good in anything he's popped up in. So it's a hell of a cast for something that sounds like it might end up being a very generic thriller, to be honest, or action
Quite
movie.
Possibly.
Yeah.
To be fair, Perlman's in a lot of generic action thrillers.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always the chance that something might stick out or be a gem in the list. I mean, this is referring to it as an action drama, so we'll see
Okay.
what that boils down to. All right, we're moving on to TV then. We'll be starting with a weird story. Elizabeth Banks is producing a Flintstones sequel series called Bedrock, and it has ended up at Fox. Fox is now developing this project for a primetime animated adult comedy, which it will be aimed at adults specifically. That's the important part here. This is not a kids show they're doing. So yeah, apparently Seth MacFarlane tried to do this about 10 years ago and it fell through. So maybe Banks can do what MacFarlane.
I mean, it's possible.
MacFarlane didn't. I don't know. Bedrock will follow the Flintstone family 2 decades after the original, with Fred on the brink of retirement and 20-something Pebbles embarking on her own career. As the Stone Age gives way to the shiny and enlightened new Bronze Age, that's pretty funny, I'll give it that, the residents of Bedrock will find this evolution harder than a swing from Bam Bam's club. I am vaguely amused that it turned into the Bronze Age and that being like a weird transition for them, but
I can see that being a lot of good, real world comedy. Talking about things moving forward, advancement, then being left behind, trying to adapt. I can see there being a lot there for it.
It depends. Like if they just do like a bronze smartphone, and the joke is that it's just modern times, but everything's bronze and made of bronze, then that's less witty.
It is less witty. I was assuming they could actually do something with industries changing, Fred being left behind, and
sure
stuck in the old jobs. There's stuff there you can do that I can see the commentary turning into comedy quite nicely.
Mm.
I'm surprised I didn't see more about this earlier today, because the only reason I know this existed, because you'd think, Flintstones is a fairly big announcement, you would assume. The only reason I saw anything about this is because one site that was reporting on it, can't remember which one, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure they've deleted all the tweets now of the evidence, were reporting it in the same tweet as a prequel that was set 20 years after the original, and they got ripped to shreds for that. Because that's not how prequels work. But, surprised it hasn't got more buzz from the announcement, honestly. But it sounds kind of interesting.
I think it has the exact right amount of buzz I'd expect for a Flintstone sequel series.
I would have expected more. If they would have hit a lot of nostalgia beats for people.
Yeah, I have nothing against it. I don't feel anything particularly strongly for it. I mean, I watched some Flintstones as a kid. It wasn't my favourite animated thing of the, the Cartoon Network era where everything kind of switched to Boomerang later, but it was kind of in that roster of shows. Anyway, moving on. We have some casting. Now, admittedly, given the age of these actors, we won't know any of them, but I think it's important to mention that Amazon has cast its 4 leads for Paper Girls, the Brian K. Vaughan comic adaptation. So Sophia Rosinski from Fastlane, Cameron Jones from Cherish the Day, Riley Lai Nillette from Altered Carbon. Hey, I've heard of that one. Fina Straza from A Christmas Melody have all been cast as the 4 leads. Now, obviously, given that these are all going to be 12-year-olds, it makes sense that we don't really know any of them. They're all new. And that's fine. So, yes, that's cool. So this is it's a pulpy sci-fi story that starts off in the 80s with 4 paper girls who end up getting caught up in this conflict with time travelers, and it ends up into a wacky story. I've read the first 2 trades of this, I think. It's all done now though, because I think the sixth trade was the last one, so it's all wrapped up now. So, presumably.
Did it finish, or did it not go on like a really long hiatus?
No, this one finished. This finished. Okay. So this probably has about 3 10-episode seasons in it, give or take. Maybe 3 8-episode seasons, if that's what they're going to be doing. But it does have an
Sounds
ending.
about right.
So, yeah, let's see what they'll do with this. I'm looking forward to checking this out.
Amazon, you said, yeah?
Amazon, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Next up, Rosalind Sanchez from Devious Maids and Grand Hotel has been cast as the lead in Fantasy Island, Fox's contemporary version of the classic drama series, which got a straight-to-series order. She's going to play Elena Rourke, a descendant of the original series enigmatic Mr. Rourke. I've never seen the show. I did, however, see Blumhouse's horror version that came out just early last year.
You poor bastard.
Is that when that came out? It was really stupid. It was barely a horror movie, to be honest, but there was a really, really stupid twist in that movie.
I'm shocked.
Me and Tim spent half the movie, or half the review, I should say, on Screams, making fun of the twist. The description here, which I assume is going to be similar to the original, but obviously it's specific to with this new character. Fantasy Island is set in a luxury resort where literally any fantasy requested by its guests can be fulfilled, although they rarely turn out as expected. The resort is run by Elena Rourke, who set aside her own ambitions and even the love of her life to uphold her family's legacy. Sophisticated, insightful, and always charming, Elena's calm exterior masks the challenges and responsibilities she has assumed as a steward of this mysterious island.
Okay. That didn't give us anything particularly unique about this version, I don't think.
Nah. Next up, Disney Plus is doing a Willow reboot, because of course it is. It's rebooting everything, because Disney Plus doesn't have original things on it. But they've cast Amir Chadha Patel from Doom Annihilation as the male lead, who will play opposite Ellie Bamber, Ruby Cruz, and Erin Kellyman. I've never seen Willow, so I can't even offer any insight.
Surprisingly, nor have I. Which, I mean, I'm not that surprised that you haven't seen it, but it seems like more my thing. I probably should watch it at some point.
So, I have nothing to add. I can move on. Next up, Walton Goggins from a variety of things. The Shield, various Tarantino movies, Justified, The Righteous Gemstones, along with Marsha Stephanie Blake, Damon Gupton, Cynthia K. McWilliams, and Omar Miller have been cast in Apple TV Plus limited series The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. I'm going to guess you pronounce that. It's got the PT at the start. I always struggle.
I think it's a silent P usually.
Silent P?
Yeah.
See, Legion's messed me up here because the character in that was Ptolemy.
Yeah, I think usually it's a silent P.
Well, then, okay. Ptolemy Gray then. The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. Samuel L. Jackson and Dominic Fishback are already in the show. I may remember Dominic Fishback from The Deuce. So this is a 6-episode series based on the best-selling book by Walter Mosley. And The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray, produced by Apple Studios, Jackson stars as Ptolemy Gray, a 91-year-old man forgotten by his family, by his friends, by even himself. How far away is he from 91? Because he is quite old now. He's in his late 70s, I think.
Don't know. Google could probably answer that for you.
Yeah, I don't know. Just interesting to think. They'll still have to old him up a little bit, but...
not too much.
Yeah. On the brink of sinking even deeper into a lonely dementia, Ptolemy experiences a seismic shift when he's given the tremendous opportunity to briefly regain his memories and use this precious gift and fleeting lucidity to solve his nephew's death and come to terms with his... So he's solving a murder. He gets like he's full brain power back for a little while, and he gets to try and solve a murder. It's a hell of a premise. I'll give it that.
It is. It's very interesting. I probably won't watch it because I tend to stay away from a lot of dementia-related projects. But it's interesting.
That's a very specific thing to stay away from.
I have a very specific family history with it,
okay.
So it's like it tends to affect me a bit. So I tend to kind of avoid it. Why put myself through that? But I do think this is an interesting concept, I suppose. Especially, I mean, the problem is I can also see it just as a very generic TV show.
It could be. Apple TV Plus, like I don't know if they have like a house
Style,
feel yet.
yeah.
So
yeah, I haven't seen enough from them to really know. And I mean, I don't know if they've actually at this stage got enough content to have developed a house style yet.
yeah, it's very, very intriguing. So that's on the horizon. It's a pretty. I mean, I don't know a lot of those names. I do know Walton Goggins, and I know Samuel L. Jackson and Dominic Fishback. Those three names alone are actually pretty cool to have as a set cast. So if the rest of those names end up filling out into something interesting, then cool. So next up, Domhnall Gleeson has been cast to play a key Watergate figure opposite Woody Harrelson in Justin Theroux in The White House Plumbers. This is HBO's 5-part limited series, which revisits one of the biggest political scandals in American history. It comes from Veep executive producers Alex Gregory, Peter Hayek, David Mandel, and Frank Rich. So Harrelson and Theroux are producing, along with some of those previous producers mentioned. So doesn't seem to be a specific.
What's the twist? Because obviously, it said plumbers, right? So I'm intrigued in what the angle is here that they're doing.
The series tells the true story of how Nixon's own political saboteurs and Watergate masterminds E. Howard Hunt Harrelson and G. Gordon Liddy Theroux accidentally toppled the presidency they were zealously trying to protect. Gleeson will play John Dean, the brilliant, ambitious, and youthful White House counsel who orchestrates the illegal cover-up that brought down Nixon and his administration. So there's nothing there to specify why it's called Plumbers.
No, okay. Very memorable title, though. I'll give it that, though, and will presumably help when it comes to Googling it. Maybe it's not a literal thing. Maybe it's just like they fixed the pipes. They fixed the. I'm assuming that's what it is now that you've read the description. But also, there was a very real possibility it was more literal than that beforehand.
Were you thinking? I don't know this story that well. Maybe part of the story is that a plumber overhears something, and that's how someone solves something.
I couldn't rule it out entirely.
The plumber who brought down the president.
Oh, that's a story there, surely.
Next up, Arrival writer Eric Heiserer, although he's not the only writer on Arrival, I don't think. Writer producer Christine Boylan and Hivemind, which produces The Witcher, are teaming with Paradox Interactive to develop a film and TV franchise around the role-playing game World of Darkness. The World of Darkness universe launched in 1991 with Vampire the Masquerade. Today, IPs under the brand includes Werewolf the Apocalypse, Mage the Ascension, Orpheus and the Hunter the Reckoning, and have spawned video games, because I've heard of the vampire one just because it's a video game.
And the werewolf one just had a game like a month or two ago, I think, and it was terrible.
Oh, didn't it? It's had card games, board games, comic books, novels, role-playing games, all the rest of it. So World of Darkness it's known for its hybrid of horror, science fiction, and fantasy, where the protagonists are monsters in complex moral situations. That seems like something primed to develop some relatively free material out of, and by that I mean probably doesn't have to actually follow a plot that's set in stone. This is the plot of this. They can just say
you take the core concepts of this is the lore and the world. That's a lot of that hard stuff of world building is kind of done for you, and you can kind of go, right, okay, let's take that aesthetic and tell a story in that world.
I think for a TV show, you just have a world that all these things exist together in. I suppose if you wanted to do some movies into it, I suppose you could separate them and it's a shared universe with different things focusing on different sex. But
I would say that even in the movies, it's probably still part of that overall universe. You might just focus on one area, one element of that society, for example.
Yeah. I see potential. I mean, it could be good. It just depends on quality and everything else, but
yeah, I mean, obviously it'll all come down to the writing, for example, but I think the overall aesthetic and tone and just kind of the lore is interesting enough that I hope it's good.
Yeah, I hope it's good too. So what's next here? MRC Television, Ryan Johnson and Ram Bergman are optioning Don Winsel's A Cool Breeze on the Underground for Bad Education's Corey Finlay to the write and direct. So we have an adaptation here. A Cool Breeze on the Underground, and subsequent titles will get a 30th anniversary re-release. So it has a 5-book series that has been developed for TV now. And if you got 5 books, I mean, that's easy 5 seasons then, without even thinking about it too much, potentially.
Yep.
So that makes sense. Yes. A Cool Breeze on the Underground introduces Neil Carey as he becomes a private investigator working for a covert New England organization called The Bank, which caters to an exclusive wealthy clients. He's assigned to find the rebellious teen daughter of a prominent senator who has gone underground in the violent London punk scene, rife with crime, drugs, and danger. And there you go. That's the description of the first one. So the problem with this is that ultimately I'm just going to read that and go, oh, it's a story about an investigator, and so much of TV is that. So
yeah, it sounded fairly generic based off of that particular description.
And even if Ryan Johnson's name was going to get you excited, he's not directing it. He's just a producer on this. So
yeah.
Mostly
meaningless, let's be honest.
So yeah, no idea where this will end up, but they're developing this, so who knows? Could go a number of places. You could see this on any of the streaming platforms. You could see it on any of the cable networks. It would fit in any of them. So there you go. Next up, there's going to be a Steve Madden TV show, possibly starring Michael Rappaport.
Okay.
Who has been in lots of things. I mostly just know him from Deep Blue Sea, if I'm honest. So, that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah, so this was Superb's poster and Cara Pfeiffer have optioned the rights to produce a TV show based on Madden's life. Steve Madden, I mean, I just know because the video game is called Madden. I assume this is the same guy that we're talking about.
Well, read on and find out.
I guess. A college dropout who fell in love with shoes while working in a mum and pop shoe store in his Long Island hometown. Madden took his company, which makes his eponymous shoe brand. Maybe it isn't the same. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe there's a weird twist coming in the story.
From the fledgling startup he founded 30 years ago with a mere $1,100 to a global juggernaut. Madden's complicated story also includes a criminal conviction and a prison set. That must be a different. This
has to be something else.
Because I was thinking, maybe the shoes. Maybe he makes like shoes for American football players. Maybe that's where this is going.
Doesn't sound like it. Is this a global brand? Have you ever heard of Madden shoes?
Oh, I'm just going to Google Madden. Madden. I just got video game results. That doesn't help me, Google. Madden NFL. Oh, come on, this is just a video game. Tell me who it's named after. Come on.
I had to Google Madden shoes to find that specifically. John
Madden is the football guy. There you go. That's a different guy. Okay,
so someone else.
So this is just someone I've barely heard of John Madden. I just knew the game. So this is completely someone else.
Yeah, Wikipedia just says is an American fashion designer and businessman. I'm like, okay.
Yes. So yes, Madden's complicated story also includes criminal convictions and prison sentence after his financial affairs got entangled with the brokerage house in Stratton, Oakmont, co-founded by Madden's childhood friend Donnie Perush. That part of Madden's life and career was depicted in The Wolf of Wall Street. Oh, okay.
Okay, I saw that.
Yeah, okay. All right. So I wasn't interested before anyway. I'm equally uninterested now. I'm just uninterested for a different reason.
What's less interesting, American football or shoes? I would say fundamentally shoes are more useful to me, but both are not that interesting.
Depends on the shoes. What type of shoes does it be?
We are not the people for this show.
No. It doesn't matter which Madden it is. Either way, I don't think we're there. And then last up, some unknown actress named Jenna Coleman is going to be playing the role of Joan Bright, the woman who ran Winston Churchill's secret Whitehall bunker in a TV drama. She's going to be the lead in The War Rooms, created by Moving On writer David Chidlow, and comes from David Parfit. So, who just won an Oscar for The Father.
Which was goddamn excellent and destroyed me because it's a devout dementia.
So you broke your rule. That's on you.
Well, I always watch all the Best Picture films, so I was like, well, I've got to get through it. I was sad tears for about half an hour at the end of that film. It was very, very, very good.
All right. Well, The War Rooms will explore the untold story of the women who lived, loved, and triumphed in Winston Churchill's secret Whitehall bunker. Okay.
That was about as much information as we had already.
Yes, it was a new sentence, so I read it in the hopes that there was going to be something more to add, but there was not.
No, there wasn't.
So this unknown actress, maybe she's good, who knows? But
what do you have against Jenna Coleman?
Nothing. I just like making fun of Doctor Who. Because I know you like.
Did you
it
do
so
this
much.
yesterday when I wasn't here? And I know you were talking about Matt Smith yesterday.
Was I talking about Matt Smith yesterday?
Well, you talked about the Game of Thrones show yesterday, so I'm assuming you did.
Well, the news was that it's coming next year. If I mentioned them, then it was like passing as just listing the cast that were in it.
I assumed that when you listed the cast, you made an equally derivative comment.
No, because Tara also doesn't give a shit about Doctor Who, so therefore there was no reason to poke the bear, because there was no bear to poke.
Unacceptable. And how dare you do this to national treasures?
Not my nationality.
They're all British.
I'm Scottish, she's English. Which, for the record, so are you. So
yes, I am. Well done.
you're also ginger, which also separates you in several other ways.
To most of the English, that's puts me closer to you than you'd like to admit.
Well, we ain't accepting you. There could be a little like grey area between the border where all the English gingers can go and congregate.
It probably exists.
Alright, there you go. That's the news. We're done, thankfully. Let us know what you thought of these stories in the comments. Please do like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot if you do. You can help us out financially if you want to by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting us for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your troubles. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV and the movies, and we will see you next time.